Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have a really quick video where I talk about the 10 things that you can do to increase your productivity. This is a question that a lot of people ask me about how I can be so productive. Over the last 3-4 years or so, I've started a lot of new ventures, which does take up a lot of time. For example, I have recently finished medical school. I'll be starting as a junior doctor working in London. That obviously takes up the majority of my day. However, on the side, I am also a qualified personal trainer and an athlete. I train for an hour to an hour and a half every single day. I also tutor and mentor school students. I supervise university students at Imperial College in London. I'm also on several high-profile national boards, including the student section of the Royal Society of Medicine. And something that also takes up a lot of my time at the moment is that I recently started a charitable organisation in the summer of 2020. It's called In2MedSchool, and we help support children from underprivileged backgrounds in the UK apply to study medicine. So day to day I need to balance all those things, which means that not only do I have to work on my time management, but also I need to use my time wisely and increase my productivity. These are 10 tips that I think anyone can take to increase their productivity. You don't necessarily need to do all 10. You perhaps have thought about a lot of these already, but these are very easy ways to slowly, over time, increase your productivity. Okay, we're going to get into it now. So, the first thing I would say is make sure you do your heavy lifting when you're at your best. Because of the distractions that occur throughout the day, for a lot of people, the most productive period of time is in the morning. One thing that I've done, and I think it would be fair to say it has actually been life-changing, is I read Robin Sharma's book, The 5 a.m. Club. I'm not saying that everyone needs to wake up at 5 a.m., but the mantra behind this is that you should use the first hour of your day for yourself. The basis of the 5 a.m. Club is that you should split the first hour of your day into 3 20-minute blocks. These should be used for exercise, learning, and reflection. So every morning I wake up and I spend the first 20 minutes doing some light movement, some light exercises. I then spend the next 20 minutes reflecting, and then the last 20 minutes I spend learning. Usually this is 20 minutes I spend listening to a podcast. Whatever it is that you do in these 20-minute blocks, the important thing is to spend the first hour of your day for yourself. This will be tough, especially at first. It's a big shift in how a lot of people think. A lot of people are used to waking up, checking their emails, checking their notifications on WhatsApp. But what I have found is that by taking away all those distractions in the first hour of the day, by the end of that hour, I am in a mood where I am super ready to be productive. So having woken up at 5 a.m. and then done these 3 20-minute blocks, at 6 a.m. I then take on the most demanding task of the day. This demanding task can change from day to day. It depends on your circumstances. For me, it usually involves something that requires a lot of thinking or a lot of writing. Over the last week, for example, on one day it has been to rewrite a manuscript that I wanted to get submitted and published. On another day, it was a grant proposal that I sent off because I wanted some more funding for my charity. So it can really vary from day to day, but it will be the thing that you've identified as being the most demanding task for that day. The peak productivity will be different from person to person, but for a lot of people, doing it early in the morning when you're not looking at your emails, your WhatsApp, where other things in your daily life get in the way, as early as possible is often the best time to do these things. Okay, tip number 2, stop multitasking. A lot of people think that multitasking, doing a lot of things simultaneously, would increase productivity. However, actually, most of the time it can be detrimental to productivity. It has recently been shown that when you switch tasks, up to 40% of productivity is lost. There was even a study done by the University of London which looked at men who were multitasking, and it identified that the men that were multitasking, their IQ had dropped up to 15 points. So my second piece of advice would be stop trying to do everything at once. If you have multiple ventures, multiple things that you want to do, give them the allocated time. Okay, and my next 2 points, point number 3 and point number 4, are slightly related, Point number 3 would be create a to-do list the night before. When I started university, I never really did to-do lists. I just kept mental notes of things instead. To-do lists are absolutely invaluable to anyone who wants to increase their productivity. Not only are they very helpful in aiding your organization, they also help you to focus your mind and also provide you with a reward when you're able to strike things off the to-do list. By having the to-do list ready the night before, it means that often I wake up and I've made some connections between different tasks on there. I've then identified which ones are important, which ones are not important as well. It also means that when I wake up in the morning, after I've spent the first hour working on myself, when I look at the to-do list, I know exactly what needs to be done first. Point number 4 also relates to the to-do list. Point number 4 is cut down on your to-do list. It can be very daunting looking at a long list of things that you need to do, but there are 2 important questions that you should ask yourself anytime you write a to-do list. The first thing would be, which of these are actually very important? And the second thing to ask when you're making this to-do list in the evening is, how many of these tasks can I realistically do tomorrow? Having these 2 questions in mind when you're writing your to-do list in the evening, ready for the next day, not only makes sure that the to-do list is relevant, but it also makes sure that the list is realistically possible. So that's my 4th tip. Not only have a to-do list, but ask the questions so that you make sure that the to-do list is cut down into the important and realistic things. Tip number 5, this is something that has been very, very important since the inception of In2MedSchool about 9 months ago. This is delegate your tasks properly. When you're working in a team, whether that be on a project or some initiative, delegating properly is a huge asset. One thing I really want to mention right now is that there's a big difference between delegating tasks and micromanaging. If you have a task and you've asked someone who is capable to deal with that task, then you should let them take control of it. What you want to avoid is giving someone a task and be closely supervising them. That's no longer delegating, that is micromanaging. Delegating properly is all about finding the right person. When you find someone with the skills to do a job and you've given them the job to do, let them get on with it. I'm really fortunate in that the people that I work with on In2MedSchool are all hugely passionate about the initiative and are also hugely skilled. Everyone involved in the core committee of In2MedSchool has their own tasks and we work together for a common goal. For this reason, In2MedSchool has become a national initiative which has helped hundreds of children all over the UK. As someone who never worked well in teams before In2MedSchool, this has been a huge learning curve for me. But for anyone else thinking about working on a large-scale project or initiative with a group of people, this can be a massive asset. So that's my next top tip, delegate properly. Okay, so we're halfway through. The next tip is get rid of all your distractions. Nowadays, of course, we spend a lot of time on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. A big reason why we can get distracted from these so easily is because they're so easily accessible. There are simple things that you can do to assist you in avoiding the distractions. For example, when you're doing the important work, you can either put your phone into another room, or if you're going to have your phone with you, you can temporarily or even more permanently remove the apps that are distractions. For me, I recently got rid of the Facebook app on my phone and TikTok as well. This means that it takes me slightly longer every time I want to go on these apps, and whenever I open my phone, the icon isn't there. These distractions are therefore no longer straight in front of me and I'm not reminded about them, making it so much easier for me to be productive. Another tip that I've adopted since starting In2MedSchool, and I think it's been hugely productive, is use your phone calls. Once or twice a week, I have a late afternoon or an evening where I put together all the phone calls that I'm expected to make during that week. These phone calls for me often include people that I work with on In2MedSchool, people that I work with in the hospitals, people that I do research with on the side as well. I find that phone conversations are generally a lot more productive. They get a lot of things done over a shorter period of time rather than emailing communications, which can happen over days or even weeks. By having all the phone calls together in one period in late afternoon or evening, it means that I'm not being distracted throughout the day with phone calls. It also means that I have to stay on topic with these phone calls, because if I was to overrun, it would then affect my next phone call. Overall, it means that the conversations that I have are much more productive, and it means that my whole day in general is more productive. The next point I want to make is break up your work throughout the day with exercise. Now, as a personal trainer and an athlete, of course I'm going to say something like that, but there's been a lot of research that suggests that exercise increases productivity. A study done by Leeds Metropolitan University identified that 65% of workers who go to the gym at lunchtime are more productive than workers who did not go to the gym at lunchtime. Exercising throughout the day not only relieves stress, but is a great way to enhance your processing power. All in all, it improves how well we work with other people, as well as how well we work on our own tasks, ultimately increasing productivity. This doesn't have to be really intensive exercise. Really intensive exercise can then reduce productivity later on if you're excessively tired. What it does mean is break up your tasks by going for a walk or for a light jog in between your major tasks. This can help you refocus your mind and make sure that you're ready for the next task. Okay, 2 more tips to go. Tip number 9 is be optimistic. Studies have shown that people who are optimistic are actually more likely to be successful. Optimistic people are found to be better at engaging with others, which can also help with their own tasks. My last top tip, this is something that is typically very undervalued, is make sure you get enough sleep. When you have a lot of tasks, a lot of ventures, and you're trying to be more productive, often there's a tendency to think that you need to cut down on your sleep so you have more time during the day in which you're awake to do your tasks. However, sleep deprivation is one surefire way to absolutely demolish your productivity. A study done by the National Sleep Foundation identified that most adults should have at least 7 hours of sleep. Do try to get these 7 hours at night, but if you're not able to, then having naps throughout the day is a good way to increase your productivity. Because I wake up at 5 o'clock, it means that I go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. When it hits 10 o'clock, I turn off all my screens, I turn off my phone, my laptop. There is nothing to distract me. At first, going to bed at 10 o'clock seemed really early, but then over time I started to realize that actually after 10 o'clock, when I am awake, I'm never really doing anything productive. I'm always either watching TV or I'm playing on the PlayStation. So actually I wasn't really missing out by going to bed at 10 p.m. So if you are now waking up earlier in the morning to get the most out of your mornings, do make sure that you still get enough sleep by going to bed earlier at night. So those are my 10 top tips for increasing your productivity. Let me know how you get on in the comment section below. As I said, these are the 10 things that I found in my life, especially over the last couple of years, that have allowed me to carry out new ventures in my life. As always, thank you very much for watching and for subscribing. I hope to see you next time.